Hi guys, here are 3 very different spiders. Each of them is poisonous in its own way. Let's consider them in detail. The first is the red knee Mexican tarantula. The steppe tarantula comes next, and in the last container there is the KARAKURT. Despite the fact that this is the smallest, the KARAKURT is the most energetic among this trinity. In addition, it is the most poisonous and dangerous of the 3. According to one of the ratings, KARAKURT is the 5th place among the spiders with the most deadly poison. Why do we observe them through the walls of the container? Of the 3 spiders, only the bird spider is able to move on smooth surfaces. Fortunately, it is rather slow and its movement is easy to control. The bite of a KARAKURT itself cannot be called painful, but after a few minutes, a sharp pain appears in the bitten place. It may be accompanied by the appearance of a red rash and convulsions. If you help a person in time, then after a couple of days, the consequences of the bite will pass. Otherwise, it can be fatal. You can see some hollows on the big butt where the red dots used to be. The KARAKURT's venom is 15 times more toxic than the rattlesnake's venom. Oddly enough, it differs from other representatives in spinning a web. Most likely, this spider will like to live in the upper part of the terrarium. By the way, KARAKURT attacks only if it feels a threat to itself. All 3 spiders will live in the same terrarium. We wonder how they can get along in one terrarium and whether they can do it at all. The red-knee Mexican tarantula is not as dangerous as the KARAKURT. The toxicity of its venom, even in comparison with other tarantulas, is considered low. This is one of the most peaceful and non-aggressive spiders. The bite of this tarantula is comparable in pain to the bite of a wasp or bee, but they bite quite rarely, relying more on the burning hairs from their paws. As we've said, this is the only spider that can move on smooth surfaces. It does this with a sucker on its legs. The KARAKURT takes the 5th place in the poisonous rating, while the tarantula takes the 8th position. Its poison is not as toxic as KARAKURT's, but its bite can be compared with a hornet in terms of pain. For people and large animals, tarantula's bite are not as dangerous as for its closest neighbors from the insect world. Tarantulas like to settle in the ground, so we will provide it with the proper conditions. We will make a terrarium from an old aquarium. There are already ventilation holes in the upper part, as well as a retractable feeding lid. For additional ventilation, another hole will be on the side. Let's move on to the interior and start with the ground. We've chosen coconut substrate. It must be poured with 2 liters of water and left for 3 hours. We need 2 of these briquettes. The resulting soil will be spread throughout the bottom, forming a landscape. As the bird eater is a lower of secluded places, we will arrange a coconut shell house for it. The house is ready! We place it in the corner of the terrarium and fill all the cavities with soil. We will also add a wooden snag to the interior as well as a hollow piece of bone, which can also serve as a shelter. And the last element of decor. There is still something left though. The lid left from the coconut will become a vessel for water. It's time to move on to settlement. The bird eater is the first to enter the terrarium. Once inside, the spider immediately freezes. As if it is not a spider at all, but a part of the interior. Let's offer it a feeding cockroach. The cockroach's fallen in front of the spider, but for some reason it doesn't interest it at all. The cockroach rolls over and goes to burrow into the ground. Indeed, the bird eater is too non-aggressive and phlegmatic. Or maybe it's just getting used to the new environment. Let's add the tarantula. It appears much more active. Noticing the bird eater, the tarantula has a very interesting way of moving, short, fast runs. Then it stops and sits in one place, assessing the situation. We also offer it a cockroach, but the tarantula, like the bird eater, shows no interest to the meal. The bird eater is located between the snag and the terrarium wall, and the tarantula follows him. It climbs in and is like, "Let's move, you're not alone here after all." We've decided to fill this hole. Left without a cozy place, the spiders sit opposite each other and freeze in anticipation. The bird eater gets bored and slowly walks away. And then it climbs up the wall. This spider is phlegmatic itself. We launch the KARAKURT. It is not just the most poisonous, but also most active. The spider immediately begins to explore the spaces of the new house. A thin thread of web stretches behind the KARAKURT from the very beginning. It is especially interested in crafts in the form of an amphora. But the KARAKURT quickly gets tired there, and it again begins to wander around the terrarium. It even climbs to the very top of the driftwood and begins to weave a web. An hour of living together has passed. The bird eater has climbed into the coconut shell and displaced the cockroach out of his house. By the way, it turns out that the snag is inhabited and ants live in it. I wonder if they will become food for spiders or will they capture the entire terrarium. Here, as in the wild, a whole ecosystem has developed. The KARAKURT has made an attempt to climb the wall but is defeated. Two cockroaches have already climbed into the house of the tarantula and kicked out the spider. How's the tarantula doing? It begins to dig its hole in the substrate, but noticing that it is being shot, it immediately stops working. By the way, we forget to say that tarantulas dig holes in which they then live. We've made this mound in the corner. Let's not forget that spiders are the most active at night. Closes the terrarium with a lid and will return to it tomorrow morning. The tarantula was the most active last night. It managed to dig a rather large hole, but it chose its place a little wrong. But the spider has its own opinion on this matter, but even from the side it will be possible to observe what it is doing there. The KARAKURT apparently settled inside the snag. At least we couldn't find it, only a web is visible near the hollow in the tree. He's probably right there. The bird-eater chose a jug as a refuge. It even set stamps made of web on all sides of the jug. Well, who cares what will happen next? Put like and we will definitely return to this topic. Today is everything for now. Bye-bye!